Mike referenced Drew Lock's passing stats last week. Now he's got to come home and take on the Georgia Bulldogs, so a different situation there, and taking on a Georgia team that had its App State moment against Nichols, but pulled through with the 26-24 win. So Georgia gets going in the SEC East, needs to get that first win against Mizzou.
Yeah, that's going to be tough for them, I think, going on the road. And let's not forget, Nicholls State had Ollie from Last Chance U on the defensive line. So, come on, man. I mean, that's nobody to shake a stick at. So, that being said, I kind of feel like, I feel like Georgia made the road. I know Kirby today during the teleconference said that Mizzou's offense was explosive. Not exactly a term I think any of Missouri's, beat writers or anybody was kind of used to hearing being used about it. But, this last week I think they showed a lot. Being at home, we'll see how the crowd shows up, because we remember years ago whenever, they called it old man football, and, of course, the SEC showed up on them. So we'll see what happens here. I think it's going to be a tough task for whoever the quarterback is if they go at Easton and they go at Lambert, which most likely will be Easton on the road. This could be the first loss for Georgia. This is going to be a tough one for me to call, guys, but I think Missouri might eke this one out. Pretty good themselves, and their secondary is pretty good, and I think they'll evenly match whatever talent Missouri has out there at the wide receiver unit. So I think that's a big key. That being said, tough for me to call this one. If Nick Chubb can come out and have a stellar day, I think Georgia walks away with it. I don't think this is going to be a beat down by any means. I don't think it's going to be a big-time, big-scoring game. But that being said, it's highly possible Georgia comes in there, plays the old man football, and walks away with it with Nick Chubb and them, and rides off into the sunset.
Mark, I tend to agree with Chad. I think Georgia's going to go in there. For me, this is a big litmus test for Georgia. They came out strong against North Carolina, although I think if you break that North Carolina tape down, I don't think North Carolina was as good as people gave them credit for, particularly with the turnovers they had. But still, Georgia looked solid in that first game. They did not look good against Nicholls State at all. It was an early game. A overlooked opponent. I'm not gonna question Georgia and Kirby Smart's direction too much after one game. The bottom line is they walked out there with a win. It wasn't pretty. It didn't look good. But if they can rebound and win on the road at Missouri, that'll tell me that Georgia is kind of on the path they need. This is going to be a litmus test game for Georgia. And hey, here's the big thing about what Chad said. For Kirby Smart to say that Missouri's offense is explosive shows you the one lasting effect that Lou Holtz had on college football. The incredible overstatement by a head coach the week of a game. That's really Lou Holtz's legacy with college football, and it's great to see coaches try to one-up each other every week to see how good they can make their bad opponents sound. So I love that Kirby Smart took the Lou Holtz challenge this week. He probably won the Lou Holtz Award, so we'll see how Georgia does. I think they're going to win the game. I don't think the game's going to be particularly good, fun to watch, but I think it'll be a typical Georgia-Missouri game where Georgia goes in and just has control of the game throughout. They go in there, they take care of business, and they get back on the plane and go home.
I think you're looking at this game. Where's the Missouri defense been through two games? They've getting pushed around so far for almost 200 yards a game rushing, and they've only gotten one sack in these games. So the defensive line that we know Missouri for, and the defense in general we've known Missouri for, hasn't shown up yet. But if you go back to Georgia's game last week against Nichols, they couldn't block for Nick Chubb or whoever the running back was. If it wasn't for Isaiah McKenzie and him being the probably the SEC East biggest playmaker right now, Georgia may have been looking at a big upset loss there. So I think they're going first and foremost get Nick Chubb going with Missouri's defense struggling to stop the run so far. Yes, we mentioned Drew Lock for Missouri. Maybe has turned the corner. Yes, that was Eastern Michigan last year, but that plays right into Georgia's strength, which is that secondary. North Carolina tried to pass the ball all around on Georgia, and that didn't help. If they would have stuck with running the ball, I think they would have had more success. So maybe Missouri does try and get that if they go back and watch that North Carolina tape. But Georgia, whoever has quarterback, Easton, Lambert, not quite finely tuned yet. But they can play ball control offense, and I think that probably what will be the difference in a close Georgia win over Missouri.